Did you notice something really odd about the seizure of 20 tons of cocaine almost 6 months ago in Philadelphia? Somebody's getting away with the perfect crime. They tried to slip 20 tons of cocaine through the U.S. to Europe. It would have been $1 billion payday, but for some reason, probably because there's a mafia war going on in Europe at the moment, and one mob snitched out the other, the drugs got caught. Here's what's known. Fact 1. The cartel behind the big drug move is Russian. Fact 2. The U.S. attorney responsible for bringing them to justice is a rabid partisan of Donald Trump. And fact 3. Because the very size of the drug move is a sign of someone's desperation, and because Donald Trump is currently the most desperate political actor on this gangster planet, it's highly possible the drug money was earmarked for his use. Today there's a Russian Mr. Bigsky out there who, despite losing his coke, is going to wriggle free of being caught holding the bag. After you've been caught moving 20 tons of cocaine, being handled to get out of jail free card is a stroke of good fortune that only ever happens to the truly connected. And of course, being connected means never having to say you're sorry. Hi, I'm Daniel Hopsiker, and welcome to this edition of Occurring Unpleasantness, Gangster Planet number 5. Does history repeat itself? How much is Russiagate like Watergate? A little? A lot? Tonight I'm going to do something I've never done before. Speak unscripted to camera to tell you how and why I know Russiagate is real. I'm not a professional performer. I can host if I've got a script, but no one is going to mistake me for a professional raconteur. So please bear with me, because what I have to say, I believe, is important. I covered drug trafficking. It's the major lucrative activity of international organized crime. It's the major league. And a few years ago, I began hearing names come up in association with what was being called the Russiagate scandal that I had been tracking for 5, 10, 15, or in some cases as much as 20 years. Major gangsters. So if this is all coincidence, please let me know. I'm going to start with a guy whose criminal activities in the Western Hemisphere I first became aware of back in 2004 and 2005. He was my first Russian oligarch. I don't even think I really understood what a Russian oligarch was back then. His name was Oleg Deripaska. In Russiagate, he became famous as the man who was paying Paul Manafort $18 million. But I first came across his name because of his association with a drug pilot, a Guyanese drug pilot, who flew weekly drug flights for Wally Hilliard, the man that owned Huffman Aviation, where Muhammad Atta learned to fly. Michael Francis Brassington's family cut a deal with Oleg Deripaska in 2003, 2004, $1 billion deal, Guyenne, to privatize that nation's bauxite resources for the benefit of Oleg Deripaska's Rusal, Russian aluminum company, one of the world's largest. Brassington's father had the juiciest job in Guyana. He was the minister of privatization. Deripaska doing business with an influential family whose son is a notorious drug pilot? Maybe just an unfortunate coincidence, but it's unlikely. When Deripaska in 2000 moved to gain control over Russia's aluminum output, the bosses of 2 huge aluminum smelters opted to sell their stakes to him. It was either that or go to prison. That's when I first said hello to Oleg Deripaska, or Oleg the oligarch, as I like to call him. He is to Russiagate what Oliver North was to Iran-Contra. The thesis we're looking at is does history repeat itself? And if it does, what does that tell us? And I think we're going to learn something. I think we're going to learn a lot. So stay tuned.
Tonight, aerial footage showing authorities today after seizing an estimated 16.5 tons of cocaine from 7 shipping containers. Authorities say crew members on the ship traveling from Chile bound for Europe are under arrest tonight.
More than $1 billion worth of cocaine won't be on our streets after federal agents raid a cargo ship.
Investigators believe that the drugs may have been loaded onto the ship during its last charge.
The recent $1 billion drug move on the 2-block-long container ship MSC Guyenne, the 20 tons of cocaine seized outside the port of Philadelphia in the middle of June, was an act of desperation, like pushing all your chips onto the roulette table at once and betting on red. Somebody needed a lot of money and needed it fast. Somebody stopped it from happening.
Good morning, I'm Bill McSwain, the U.S. Attorney. On June 17th, spotlight hit Philadelphia when federal, state, and local law enforcement agents boarded the MSC Guyenne and carried out this massive and stunning drug seizure, one of the largest in our nation's history. In the following days, 6 defendants were arrested and charged. The vessel is operated under the flag of Liberia by MSC, which stands for Mediterranean Shipping Company, and MSC is a Swiss-based shipping line. It is one of the world's largest shipping lines. We must do everything we can to dismantle international drug trafficking organizations who destroy the lives of those who are addicted to drugs. That begins with strong border protection and ends with aggressive prosecution of those who seek to profit from peddling poison. And to those aboard the ship, who were aboard the ship and who now are in federal custody, I say this: you thought you could breeze into our port and then leave with enough cocaine to destroy millions of lives without getting caught. You thought you were clever. You were wrong. You underestimated the city, you underestimated our law enforcement capabilities, and our commitment to decimating the illegal and immoral drug trade.
U.S. Attorney McSwain said, "We must do everything we can to dismantle international drug trafficking organizations who destroy the lives of those who are addicted to drugs. That includes aggressive prosecution of those who seek to profit from peddling poison. But being a committed Trump loyalist, that may prove difficult. Because the cartel whose 20 tons of cocaine got busted is Russian, and they're Trump's biggest and most reliable backers. It's early days yet in the Containergate investigation, but here's what we already know. There's Russian involvement in the 20-ton drug move. 2 mafia factions in Kotor, Montenegro, where the ship's second mate, Ivan Durasovic, and 3 other implicated seamen are from, have been at war all across Europe for several years, with dozens of casualties. Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, and no stranger to drug trafficking, has an outsized presence in Kotor, where he built a $500 million resort and lavish billionaire's yacht club on the shores of the Adriatic. He's even suspected of having been responsible for an attempted coup. The 20-ton drug bust in Philly was the second largest in American history. That's a valuable piece of information because it calls attention to the long-forgotten drug bust, which was the largest ever. Here's how it went down. Local cops in Sylmar, a quiet suburban community tucked into the farthest reaches of Los Angeles and San Fernando Valley, received an anonymous tip about suspicious behavior at a local self-storage franchise. It was September 28, 1989, and although it happened 30 years ago, it offers what may be the clearest snapshot ever taken of the U.S. drug trade. Inside the Sylmar self-storage facility, astonished agents found 21 tons of cocaine, which they valued at $6 billion. The cocaine connection in Mexico was to a Juarez cartel trafficker, who was a former high-ranking Mexican federal police chief. The man running the operation was Carlos Tapia of Chihuahua, was a 69-year-old retired Mexican customs inspector. It was prima facie evidence of the protected nature of the drug trafficking involved. Also noteworthy was the industrial scale of the operation. The drug business was obviously humming along at the time, and it's only gotten bigger, much bigger since. The cocaine was hauled overland from El Paso to Los Angeles on huge tractor-trailer trucks. Prosecutors said the group had smuggled, just in the previous 4 months alone, 77 tons of cocaine. At that base, the facility, presumably just one of several spread across 3 time zones, would have been distributing more than 200 tons of cocaine a year. Also, notebooks discovered during the raids showed that the drugs the operation was warehousing came from both the Cali and Medellin cartel, which were supposedly at war at the time. But the most curious fact is the $6 billion valuation involved. The Philly bust was at 20 tons, almost the same size, yet it was valued by authorities at just $1.3 billion. If cocaine is almost 5 times cheaper today than it was 30 years ago, then the U.S. has wasted the more than $1 trillion spent so far on the war on drugs. It reminds me of what old-time Senator Everett Dirksen used to say. $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. For more than 3 years, since at least November 2016, Americans have known in their bones that, in the words of a famous Southern lawman, it was my pleasure to have known, even though he was stubbornly on the wrong side of history, things ain't always been just right around here. Because of the persistent activity by those in power in the U.S., not much could be done. Until now. Donald Trump no longer has the stroke to direct the public conversation towards whatever he wants it to be about. Because that Russiagate is about to burst over the banks, the attempted billion-dollar drug move on the 2-block-long container ship MSC Guyenne at the port of Philadelphia in the middle of June of this year reminds me a lot of something that happened during Watergate. It's like deja vu all over again. 10 days after the arrest of the Watergate burglars in the Watergate Hotel on July 1st, 1972, the TV series Bewitched aired its final episode. The U.S. Attorney General John Mitchell resigned as chairman of Richard Nixon's re-election campaign. And lifelong CIA pilot and drug smuggler Barry Seal was arrested on the tarmac of an airport in New Orleans as he prepared to fly a DC-6 cargo plane carrying enough C4 plastic explosive to blow the island of Cuba halfway up the Florida Keys. Reporters at the time labeled it the Mexican connection. It was how beleaguered President Richard Nixon was raising millions to buy the silence of the Watergate burglars. After delivering the plastic explosives, Barry Seal was to fly the hush money back. The template laid down by his efforts to raise cash for the Watergate burglars is not outside the realm of possibility for the mobbed-up cast characters in the current scandal. Listen, we've all been around, and we're all well aware that we live on a gangster planet. The subjects I pick to investigate are the most controversial, and sometimes the most dangerous, but they're what I think are the most important. Help me keep the investigation going. I've added a GoFundMe to spend a week in Philadelphia poking around into the port and among its denizens, and signed up with Patreon, though I'm just in the process of adding the links. So buy a book already and help keep me going.